Woohoo! Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. Do we have the show for you tonight? If you've ever wondered if we're jumping realities or living in a simultaneous universe and what in the world that means for you, then do we have the Cynthia Sue Larson Mandela Effect and its Society show for you. And that's just what I want to talk with you about today, about whether we're jumping realities and experiencing a simultaneous universe, and if so, where's the proof? So welcome back to the show, Cynthia. Are you ready to shine?
Absolutely. Love it. Love to see how good it can get.
Awesome. So I guess we've got to start with the interesting question, not the hard problem of physics. However, is our reality being altered?
I would say yes. And in terms that when we look at things that are physical and expect that they'll be the same or that history doesn't change, absolutely, those things are changing. They do not always stay the same. So that flies in the face of what we've been told, what I grew up with when I went to school. It's
Can
very
you give
different.
an example of that, of how things are changing or are not as how we've been told? Yeah.
Yeah, the strongest convincing arguments always are going to be one's own personal experiences. So, having said that, the Mandela effect itself is really a collective experience where groups of people are remembering things differently than official history presents. So, the Mandela effect was named after Nelson Mandela. So, it's not a mandala, which would be cool, but it's the Mandela, Nelson Mandela. And people remember that he had died in the 1980s. A lot of people pin it around 1987 is
Yeah.
when they remember he passed away when he was incarcerated in Robbins Island, a political prisoner. And then what happened next is shocking because he was black. And that's where the term Mandela effect came into being when Fiona Broome and some other people at Dragon Con were talking about this in the early 2000s and saying,
Yeah.
does anybody else remember that he died and now he's alive again? What's going on with that? But I like to also give a shout out to Art Bell because he was definitely one of the first to notice this about Nelson Mandela. And he was getting lots of faxes, which I remember this is back in the day, the
Oh, yes.
1990s, early 2000s. Sounds funny now. What's a fax? It's a little piece of paper that would electronically be transmitted. So he was getting those
Which was
phone calls too.
H.G. Wells actually wrote about the fax machine in his last book that was basically buried, and they said never to publish this book. And when it came back out to the light of day, things like the fax machine were in his writing from well over 100 years ago, which really jumps the gun. And we're going to get there tonight. We're going to talk about simultaneous realities. We're going to get to parallel universes. We're going to get to whether time is real or not. But maybe you can give another example or two that we all know about, we don't think we know about. Can you give us another example or two? And like, what was it? Stouffer's, Stouffer's,
Stovetop
stovetop.
stuffing,
Oh my God, I grew up on Stouffer's and it was not Kraft. But can you give us a
right?
few examples that we all know of that are just going to blow our mind tonight?
That one's big for Americans, Stouffer stovetop stuffing. It may not
Yeah.
be big in Canada or other places, maybe, but I don't know for sure. A global one is the Kit Kat candy bar with the little hyphen. The Kit
Yep.
Kat is global, but it doesn't have a hyphen, never did. So that's kind of bizarre. A lot of products are influenced by the Mandela effect. So people specifically remember something like the monocle on money bags, the Monopoly guy.
Oh yeah.
That's a common people remember that. He never had a monocle. So even though we remember that he did, he didn't. So that's a huge one. For me, the big ones are physiological changes. So I do remember that the heart was biologically located a little bit to the left
Yeah.
because in the United States we put our hand over our heart. So the teacher would say over the slightly to the left. But the heart now is centered in the chest, which makes sense. It seems like that was an upgrade for humanity and our kidneys have moved slightly up. That one's a huge one for me because I remember there was something called a kidney punch, and be careful not
Of
to strike
course.
or injure someone in their lower back area because they could actually die from that kind of a strike to the kidneys. Now they're a little bit safer. They've been elevated up a bit. A lot of people notice the movie ones, like Field of Dreams. If you build it, I remember They Will Come. So if you build the baseball stadium and the ballpark, they will come,
Well, it's
not he
interesting.
will come.
That one drives me batty because I've actually been to the Field of Dreams in Iowa, and I've seen the plaque where it says, "If you build it, he will come," which makes no sense. But I even remember not only remember the Field of Dreams movie, but there was what was it? Married with Children, Al Bundy show on Fox back probably on the 80s. And he built something and he heard too. And it says in the show, or at least it did, if you build it, they will come. And then he will come. Who's he? What are we talking about? So and then the one
Yeah.
that blows my mind the most, and I want your take on Star Wars, and then we'll jump into more of these things. But the one is "We Are the Champions."
Yes. The song, I remember that it ends of the world. That's where you're going with this.
Exactly.
Yeah, we are the champions. We are the champions. Yeah. And it goes da da da, and on and on. But then it ends of the world. And there's a lot of people remember that. A lot of people sing that. And then they seem startled when they find out that's not the way the song officially ever ended. Like, what? Music changes are strange, especially when it's a well-known song like that, because that's something that we've been singing that you would sing along with. Why would we be all singing it the same way wrong? And
Was there
that's
an
what really is the big question with the Mandela effect.
was there an Annie song that way too?
There might be. What are you
I think
remembering?
at Hard Knock Life there was some Annie song I remember that changed, and there've been some other lines in movies. Maybe give us one more example of a movie, and then I'll jump
Okay.
into some more questions and get to the heart of things.
Yeah, well, Star Wars is a big one. People often remember, that it's the huge scene with Darth Vader talking to, Luke Skywalker, and he's saying, like, I am your father. But do you remember that he said, Luke, I am your father?
Of
Or
course,
that's what I remember. This is James Earl Jones' booming voice. I saw it in the
Luke,
theater.
I am your
Luke.
father.
Yes. But now he never said that, even though the actor himself remembers it that way. Like it was Luke, but it wasn't Luke, I am your father. It was no, I am your father. So that's really strange, really a strange one. And that's a big
Which
movie. People have seen that one.
one last one then is, and both you and I know this, and I've read your beautiful book. I'm going to recommend it to everybody, and it's a book worth rereading and rereading and rereading. But
Mhm.
it's a James Bond movie. It might be Moonraker. It's where there's giant hulking of a man has braces, and then there's this little girl who has braces too, and they share a moment. And you're telling me it doesn't exist anymore. That scene does not exist.
It's gone. I mean, it's not the same movie as it used to be because Jaws was his character with all those teeth,
Yes.
and he was called Jaws because it's kind of scary. He's a big guy. So it was especially a sweet, strange moment where he falls in love with this girl with braces, and it was now it doesn't make as much sense because she doesn't have the braces. And what really was funny when they were smiling together, and it's like, well, of course, they both have metal teeth.
Yeah.
Now, why would we remember that? Why would we all collectively have this kind of a memory? Because people say, well, this is confabulation, it's false memories.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Then what would that be based on? Why would we all collectively misremember things exactly the same way?
Now, I want to get to the why, and you've actually held conferences on this and built an organization around this for, I believe, at least 20 years. I'm curious, is this taking place now more than ever? Because we call this time period the Great Awakening. I know I do. And to me, it's a beautiful time period, even though it's a duck and cover one. But it seems to be on this accelerator of differentness and different information.
Yes, it's happening much more than ever. We just did a live stream show yesterday for
Yeah.
International Mandela Effect Conference on YouTube, and we had so many new Mandela effects coming in, we couldn't really keep up with it all, involving bubblegum and just all sorts of things. It's like, okay, this is too many to cover them all. And also, I'm noticing that the media is starting to cover Mandela effect as if everyone understands what it is. Like, oh, is this a Mandela effect? So the term is entering popular usage in the mainstream, And that's huge. In the 25 years I've been tracking basically this phenomenon, I know it didn't have the name yet, but I was tracking what I called reality shifts, but it's the same thing because it's groups of people remembering things sometimes exactly the same way, noticing that there's been a change to reality itself. So, yes, it's changing more often. Yes, people are noticing it. And it's definitely a thing. Even with people you might not think would ever have heard about this, they probably have heard about it. They may have experienced it.
Why do you think reality is shifting more now and getting? I'm going to use it's a good British term that I like. That reality and time itself seems to be more squidgy, shall we say?
Awesome. No, it is squidgy, isn't it? It's so squidgy. Well, I think that's a good word too, because it gives you that feeling of flexibility, malleability. Like we tend to assume that the physical reality is stuck, which it's one, I guess it's good if you like where you are. But what if you are faced with a world full of inexplicable, unsolvable problems?
Yeah,
Then is it perhaps an advantage that reality is a bit squidgy? I'd say yes, this is a big advantage. And to me, that's part of the answer. Like, yes, we're starting to notice that reality is not fixed, it's not stuck. We're not doomed to have to live out our days with this disastrous situation. Not at all. Because when we start noticing things are changing, like anything at all can change, geography can change. It is apparently changing. Astronomy can change. Everything can change. There's no limit to it. Well, then this can be a good thing. And also, a lot of the changes we're noticing, they
yeah.
seem pretty mild. It's squidgy, but it seems like someone is very gently showing us how to play in a sandbox. Like, here, try this. And everything seems fairly safe for the most part, which I definitely appreciate.
Let's move South America on you. You'll be
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, people have noticed that, like the Panama Canal. Do you remember which way it used to run? Like, would you say it ran like east, west, north, south? I mean, what do you think?
Oh, geez. I'm going to go west to east, but I don't actually know on that one.
Yeah, but now it's like a north-south situation, and I don't
What? Whoa, whoa,
remember
whoa,
that the
whoa, whoa, whoa,
Pan.
whoa, whoa. I wasn't knowing if it's west to east or east to west, but it was never north to south.
Right. And
What?
and people are, I know. And some people are noticing that the South American continent seems to have shifted substantially toward the east. So to the point that time zones are different than they remember that the time zones used to be. They remember, like, hey, I used to fly to South America. I didn't change time zones. Something's different. So I mean, and we're hearing this from people. I believe them. I didn't make that flight myself, but when I look at a map, it looks like the whole South American continent is. It used to be lined up kind of with North America. It's not lined up anymore.
It's interesting. I track because we live a good portion of the year, have lived a good portion of the year in Florida, and so I track all of the storms coming off of Africa, and now it seems that Africa and South America seem to be a lot closer lately than anything I
Yeah.
remember.
That's exactly it, right? And it seems subtle until you start noticing, like, what's going on? It's almost like we
Yeah.
look away, you look back, and it's moved. It's like, no, the map moved. Like, how's it doing that? So it's
So
a
so
funny thing.
one of the questions. So we had on a beautiful guest a few months ago, Pamela Ern, who did a channeling with future humans on what's coming up for the election results, and which is a daring and bold thing to do, but she bravely did it. It was awesome, and she made a prediction at that point for President Biden just barely winning the election. Now we know what's happened over the last few weeks, and he's no longer even a candidate. And when we had her back on the show a week or so ago, people are going, "You really didn't get that right." What I see happening, though, and please, you have so much more expertise in this than me, is with the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump a few weeks ago, we literally shifted timelines or shifted realities. And the reality or the preponderance of the evidence that was leading toward one result completely went away because we leapt timelines. What do you think took place, and what in the world am I saying?
Well, I love what you're saying when you're recognizing that Pamela was brave to make a prediction about even what would be happening next week, let alone this later this year in
Yeah.
November. So that was quite brave. And what we're seeing right now is, along with all these Mandela effects, I mentioned that we're seeing a lot of them. That is evidence, if you will, that timelines are shifting rapidly. And so even before the terrible assassination attempt on the former President Donald Trump, even before that happened, there was so much the traffic of reality streams, like it's like a freeway at rush hour, and all
Yeah.
these timelines just going and flowing. And so it's really difficult for some of the futurists that used to work even in the US government. And I do mention that in my book, that there have been people that contacted me and they said, I used to work for the time travel department, secret department of the
Okay,
US
wait, hold
government.
on. Bookmark. We'll get back to there in a second.
Oh,
Keep talking. All right.
okay. Yes. So that was extraordinary. And they said, you did not exist. So they were contacting me, and this is some time ago. It was before 2012, and they
Yeah.
were letting me know, like, you did not exist, and I would have known because their job was to track and see who's looking at reality shifting, which of
Yeah.
course it involves time shifts. Time shifting is a huge part of that. And so going back to the timeline scenario, when we know for sure that the experts in time travel and forecasting by virtue of looking at possible realities within the government. And I'm taking them at their word for it. And it makes
Yeah.
sense to me that if we've got remote viewers, then of course they're looking forward in time. Then it's very difficult to look forward in time once you get past the year 2012. I totally agree with that because I'm seeing such a huge increase in these Mandela effects, which are basically like timeline jumps, and we're doing them together. We're collectively shifting. So it's really challenging to predict where are we going to end up. It's right now August, and so November is just a few months away. Boy,
Yeah.
it's coming fast. But that seems like lifetimes away. So who knows what'll happen by then? And yeah, so I can see easily that she would have been looking at a very probable timeline, which was a
Yeah.
probable timeline. And then with, like you said, events conspired to change all that. And suddenly that was not the top timeline anymore.
Yeah. So I can't believe I'm going to go here. Hmm. I'm thinking of Men in Black. Is there such thing then as time travel police, or what is the government doing around? And I want to say for everybody here, I'm not a conspiracy kind of guy. Yes, those in power want to stay in power. I get that. You know, I'd like to stay with my job, for instance. That sounds good, or something even better. Um, so I don't want to put us in a place of victimhood here, but are there
Yeah.
people trying to control time or keep us on certain timelines then?
I'd say that's probably true. And be just knowing governments as they are and the desire to maintain safety, they'll do it for the best of reasons. You might think like, what? That doesn't sound good. But probably if it can be done, then probably people are working to do it. We know they were doing remote viewing. That was decades ago.
Yeah,
So where would the current technology and the effort be made right now? It's got to be that exactly what you're talking about. But like I said, there's been a frustration point reached in before 2012 that the control factor was slipping. So that means that the governments are not quite able to fix their control on it. This to me indicates that there's a change, fundamental change in the way that humans are doing things together, and that what we looked at is very hierarchical
yeah.
structure of our governments and of most of our power structures, that seems to be kind of giving way to something different. And I'd say this is part of the quantum revolution and the dimensional shift, the awakening of the human population, probably what Pamela was talking about as well.
Thank you. So I want to get to jumping timelines, but and proof that we're jumping timelines. But before I do that, you just said quantum revolution and something else. What do you mean by that for people?
We
Oh,
are
oh,
entering
yeah,
yeah, okay, quantum age. So we're in the quantum age right now, which people may not have noticed. They know that we went through the Bronze Age, and before that was the Stone Age, and now people often say that was the Information Age. And I'm saying the quantum age is a big deal because
yeah,
it's impacting every single area of science as well as much of our way of life, whether we know it or not. And so the quantum concept is that there are some processes in nature that are intrinsic to nature, fundamental to nature, but most of us did not learn about them. And they sound weird. Things like quantum entanglement, which is what Albert Einstein was referring to as spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
And that was just referring to the fact that if you make a measurement of one quantum particle and its spin is up and it's entangled with another, which is spin is down, no matter how far apart they are, including maybe miles, kilometers, whatever distance mechanism you use, is if you take another measurement and you know that this one is down, then you know the other one is up. And our quantum computers will be utilizing this technology as well as quantum logic itself. Quantum logic operates differently than Boolean binary logic. And it kind of change that we need to make as humans to keep up with that. I think it's part of nature, and those of us who meditate are pretty much already there. That's the good news.
Yeah.
So people don't need to feel like I have to take a lot of classes, not necessarily, because it's built into us to understand fundamentally that this is not a black and white world. It's not just true and false. There's also true and false, and not true, not false. And then you start understanding, oh, I get it. That's how nature is, and there's this connection. We know that if you're working together with parts of nature, like you're entangled with your loved ones,
Yeah.
your favorite pet, your child, then you'll have a synchronicity. You'll have an alignment. A lot of shared experiences will happen based on that connection. So these are quantum concepts that are quite natural, but some of them they seem weird, like quantum teleportation and quantum superposition of states. Some of these are implying that we are dancing through these realities in ways that we probably had never thought about before.
So is there a way scientifically or otherwise to prove, for instance, we're jumping timelines or jumping to different realities?
Well, I think scientifically, the best evidence I've seen so far, it's pointing in the right direction. It would be the work of sort of I give a nuanced yes to that. And
Yeah.
I'd refer to a 2019 study that was published in 2019, and it was the collaborative effort of physicists working at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, Scotland, in collaboration with scientists working in Vienna, Austria. And what they were doing is taking the idea of physicist, um, his name is Wigner, so I'm pronouncing it the German way. It's spelled
Yeah.
Wigner, and so Wigner's friend was the concept, the idea that if one observer is watching a quantum system, Wigner was asking the question, what happens if there's an observer of the observer? And so for the first time in 2019, an experiment was conducted to see if two observational devices
Mhm.
situated and located at the same space at the same time, could they see two different things? Eugene Wigner would say, yes, he would expect so. Finally, in 2019, we got our answer. Yes, yes, they will and they can and they do see two different realities at the same place at the same time. That's
Does
extraordinary.
To extrapolate, and you can tell us maybe whether it's safe to extrapolate, does this mean A, we can be two places at the same time, and maybe you can share about that, and B, um, my wife and I will have this discussion, and she will say, "You said this to me," and I will say, "I absolutely," in the timeline and reality I'm operating, and I'm not saying this tongue in cheek, I'm not saying it facetiously. In the timeline and reality I'm operating on, I never could have possibly said that to you, and we both be right.
Yes, yes, yes. I actually wrote a paper and presented it called When Worlds Collide, and with some advice, I co-authored that with
Yeah,
another researcher, and we acted it out because the best possible scenario, if you start knowing that this is happening, is to say, okay, I love the way you said that. Like, this could not possibly be true, what you're saying, because in my reality, it's this.
yeah,
Good. But then the next step is to also embrace what your wife is saying and say, okay, and I see that you experienced that. They
totally.
both, yeah, it's like true and false. It's like, okay, there's quantum logic. It's like, uh-oh, this is not binary world anymore. It's not Boolean.
Yeah.
This is true. And yes, we can bilocate as well. And yes, sometimes we do that. And we can experience our future selves as well. Strange things can happen in space and time when we start venturing into this new quantum age that I think we're ready for it. I think humanity is ready for it. Um, and it's thanks to shows and programs like what you're doing when you bring people together to talk about the awakened human, to bring in some of our top researchers to prepare us to be thinking, feeling, and integrating all of this information because it's a lot. It's not enough just to know it intellectually. It's quite something else to feel it and to experience it, like what you did with your wife. When you start realizing, like, how is that possible? That what she said, because you believe her, she's not going to lie to you. So
No, no,
obviously,
she's the truth police.
right. So this happened, but you know for your own self that what she's saying did not happen in your reality. And that totally happens. These things do occur. And so your daughter's quite fortunate to be in this family where you can understand that because there will be moments. I don't think she'll take advantage of it. Some people might say, she'll take advantage of this. Like, but you said this.
Oh, she's already got us. There's no need to take advantage of us. We're hers,
Right.
and we know this.
I think she'll be responsible with that. And I have a sense that she's quite like you were saying earlier before the show started, she's quite gifted.
Yeah,
She feels like a genius. She feels just in the right place at the right time. I think our young people really are
yeah,
the way forward, and they'll be understanding these concepts that seem shocking to us because we grew up with this very different mindset and very
yeah.
different belief set.
What I keep teaching her and keep telling her is with responsibility, with power comes responsibility. Because I believe, and even just from the show here, it's going to shift everybody who's watching this here tonight. And whenever people come to watch it, they will we are going through a doorway, everybody who's watching this here tonight, of understanding. And the farther you get to the other side of this doorway, or this I call it a nodal point in the timeline. I believe you actually refer to that as well. Once you get to the other side of this nodal point, you're not going back. New possibilities, though, open up to you. You may be able to bilocate or bifurcate, for that matter. You may be able to do many things that you couldn't do before, and I believe the new gen already gets that because they haven't been taught otherwise. And that is tremendous power. And so I'm going, all right, you're going to have this power, which we're gaining through things like this, but
Yes.
responsibility. Because we're going to be able now. I've been telling people, and I'm not going political at all. I've been telling people, look beyond the election, look beyond, and I say there are no
Yes.
sides on a round planet, and so I say I don't care if you're black, you're white, you're red, you're blue, you're a zebra, it doesn't matter. But look beyond this, because what we're going to do as we understand more of the principles here tonight is we are literally going to shift that reality, no matter what. We'll call it the old guard does here. It almost, in the greater scheme of things, doesn't matter when we learn how to play with this energy.
Exactly. Yeah, the key is coming to a peaceful place within ourselves so the conflict is smoothed out. I think a lot of people have had inner conflicts, and when we start noticing these Mandela effects, these reality shifts, that's where that
Yeah,
responsibility you're teaching your daughter comes in, because it really means that there's no room to be holding hatred in our hearts for
yeah,
someone else. So that's that embodiment thing again. Like, okay, we've got the idea, like I need to be a good person with everyone. And then you need to start feeling it in your heart and then living that way. Because when what you're thinking can start manifesting, which is
yeah.
part of what's connected here, as you know, well, then collectively we're learning this and feels like we're on our way in a good direction.
Woohoo. So,
Yes.
how can we tell if we're experiencing different timelines, or almost like in the movie Matrix when they goes, oh, I just had a deja vu, and they're like, what, wait. How?
Yeah. It's like where that cat walks across the room and then the cat walks across the room, the glitch in the matrix. Yes.
Bingo.
That's one, that is one way to notice it. And I've exactly had that exact situation happen where a woman passed out a business card twice to the room
Yeah.
of people. And I asked someone else, did she already do that? And they said, no. Like, oh my gosh, then what's going on? And then fortunately I was in a hotel lobby and a woman came in, walked right past us. And then a few minutes later, she did that again. And she was unmistakable. It was just one woman that looked like her.
Oh,
And the second time I asked her, did you just walk through a few minutes ago? She said, no. And I did have a witness who said, I saw that too. Like, okay. And she doesn't have a twin. I was asking the obvious questions. Do you have a twin? He was
yeah.
like, no. So
Are there other ways
yeah,
we can tell we're
there are
experiencing
other
other
ways
time?
you can tell. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you might notice very subtle things. It doesn't necessarily need to be this huge shift where a movie changes or so on and so forth, but it might be something small. Philip K. Dick, the famous author, he was talking about things. You might just notice a light switch changing. I want to give a
yeah,
shout out to him because he was talking about this in Metz, France back in 1973. That's pretty early to be talking about exactly this phenomenon. So it could be something in your household that
yeah.
something you always do, and it's suddenly quite different.
I think it's going to blow people's minds tonight. But we have, I believe, all experienced, you know, going on autopilot, shutting off the light, going to bed. And then at some point, if we live there long enough, we're like, wait a second, I thought the light was always over here. And now and then you're like, huh, I'm very confused.
Yes, yes. And Philip K. Dick, he's another one that's seeing the future, like talking about fax machines, seeing them early. Philip K. Dick wrote a lot of science fiction, so he would write things like um, Minority Report, that movie about
Oh, yeah.
people that could see the crimes before they're committed, and then you arrest the criminal before it happens. That's pretty strange. But now it looks, if you watch that movie, you'll see like, gosh, the stuff he's showing where you just walk into a building and the building recognizes you and it's showing ads just for you. We're pretty much there. And then he's got The Man in the High Castle and a bunch of other amazing films and books and short stories. So when he talked about it, then it's quite clear he was experiencing it. And he
Yeah.
said he would write these short stories and people would say, that happened to me too. Now with the Mandela effect, we're really seeing it take off in a big way. So,
Yeah.
and you're right. I think if you live in a place long enough, you'll notice something's different. Might not be the light switch, but in my case, it was the dryer. I was just setting the dryer to do some laundry, and the dial didn't turn the same way anymore. And then just last month, I turned the water off in the kitchen after washing my hands like I've done for years. And I turned my back and the water was on again. I had to turn it on. I turned it on once, but I turned it off twice.
Yeah.
That's only happened to me once. And that's
There's a,
not my imagination. It's another reality. Like it's so those kind of time shifts, those little glitch in the matrix kind of things, those moments, that's how you know
yeah.
you've been jumping timelines.
There's a trail near me in Florida that I kind of go around this trail. It's about a 4 mile loop on my bicycle, and I have every single turn memorized. And I take it like a Formula One race car driver to this turn. Okay, this line through this turn. Watch for the tree over here. Watch for the rock over here. Tree, stump or roots or this and that. And then all of a sudden, a whole section of it had an added piece to it because you would link this turn to the next turn to the next turn, and then all of a sudden it was this turn, and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And then you get to the next turn and the next turn, and you're like, wait a second. This was never, and I thought of you when this first happened. I'm going, this was never this way before. These are all burned into my consciousness. Link this, link that, and it changed.
Yes. But I love how it gets you I love that example because then it's snapping you right out of autopilot. Because I mean, literally that you were on autopilot, but it's like that Formula race car driver, like I know what I'm
Yeah,
doing. And suddenly like, whoa, what the heck? You know,
totally.
you probably have to slow down a bit, be
Yeah.
really mindful. And I think that's a good way to look at these Mandela effects too. Like they are inviting us to slow down, talk about it, look at it, be mindful, be aware.
Is it asking us? Usually, I have a snow globe on my desk. I don't have it here yet, meaning since we moved into this house. But is it inviting us when that happens? Is it sort of like I play with angel numbers a lot? You get 111, you get 444. Your angels are by your side, but they're asking you certainly put out a request, but to recognize the importance of this moment and be present with it. So when we get something
Yes.
where our heads snap back, is that the universe
Yes.
giving us a message?
Yes, it's really pay attention. Don't I think the guidance I keep seeing, especially for this time, is to be mindful, to be aware, to do not be hard on ourselves because that's easy. We sometimes can go into that place of
Yeah,
beating ourselves up or beating someone else up. It's not about that at all. It's not about getting more enmeshed in the drama at all, but it's much more just being grateful and aware of the blessings that are here right now that we might be ignoring otherwise. And it's obviously to me, that's what it seems to be about. Also, awakening within us a deeper wisdom
Yeah.
And that's in the subtitle of my book, Awakening from Me, which stands for Mandela Effect, to we, which can be a wisdom effect. So it can go from something
Ooh.
random,
Yeah.
yeah, where it's just like, well, Nelson Mandela died, now he's alive again. That's random. And, the random things, it can look very random. But then if you start noticing, what if this is a toolkit? What if right now humanity is being faced with global warming or climate change or whatever they want to call it? And some people say, oh, that's not the worst of it. It's going to be a solar micronova. It's not just global change like that. It's going to be worse. But you can say, okay, it doesn't matter whether it's going to be worse. It doesn't even matter about any of that stuff, or the aliens are coming or whatever. You can say, you can look at all of that and recognize we're getting the toolkit we need for these interesting times. And we now do have the wisdom to be able to manifest pretty much what we're thinking about. It's like we're moving from our hearts. Hopefully, we've mastered heart consciousness.
Yeah.
Some people would say, like some of us have gotten there. Now we're moving into the fifth world, which is the fifth chakra, about the throat, about expressing, like as you speak it, so it is. And this would be the stuff of gods. We're not gods, but we'll have some abilities to speak our affirmations and see that this can be good and can be true. So that's why wisdom matters. It's not cleverness. It's not trying to get, I got mine. It's not about I got mine.
Yeah.
It needs to be, it's funny. It needs to be, how good can it get for everyone? It needs to
Ooh.
be, yeah, it needs to be like, how good can I get? How God can I get? Good can we get? How
Yeah.
God can we get? And it's really elevating that space and that energy. And you can feel it when it's happening. And that's the invitation that I'm feeling from all of this.
Woohoo. Couldn't agree more. Let's dive into a little more of the interesting stuff here. Well, this is all interesting stuff. But what are anchor proofs?
Okay, anchor memories is another term for it. And so when
Yeah.
people feel like, okay, I've got proof because I know this happened,
Hmm.
because I have an anchor memory that absolutely happened the way I remember it. So
Yeah.
I'm not making this stuff up. And it's like, I know this changed.
Yeah.
There was a friend of mine, she's passed away now, Eileen Coles, and she wrote about having gone. She was a journalist and she was going to visit Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
And I think it was 1987. So she was a journalist. I think she was living in England at the time and she was going down to South Africa. But he died, he passed away. So it's like she remembers going there, not getting the interview because he had passed away. And then she noticed he's alive again. So she's a co-author on a book, Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe,
Yeah.
with Shane Robinson and a couple of others. And that would be her anchor memory. Like I was there. Um, and so for me, I remember Jane Goodall passed away and then she was alive again. Unfortunately, I think she still is alive again.
Yeah.
Glad to see it. But I remember she had died, unfortunately, right after Diane Fossey, who had been murdered, and then shortly within a month, so was Jane Goodall. And that's my anchor memory because I remember the first time it happened, it's like, that's horrible. And then the second one happened, and then I thought, hold on, that's outrageous. Like, that's not okay. Like, and it was kind of funny because I had that that's not okay feeling, and maybe
Yeah.
me and a whole bunch of other people felt that way. And maybe that's what it takes to get that kind of a timeline jump together. A whole bunch of us felt like that's not okay. And then
Well,
boom, she's back. But that was my anchor memory. It's
yeah.
like I know I'm not mixing these two up because it was within 1 month.
Oh, it's interesting. So I was reading in your book about the flat tire that wasn't. And
Yes.
I'm remembering after I had my first near death experience, I'm healing. I'm on my bike. I'm working on getting strong again. And I slipped and fell on a wooden bridge on my bicycle. And it looked very much like my ankle was broken, and I felt my ankle was broken, and oh God, this thing was just messed up. And I got home, and I just kept replaying it in my mind's eye that it didn't happen and that I was fine. And then I went into the doctor and said, I want you to x ray this. I know it's not broken. I know it's not doing great. And he takes a look at it. He's going, and it looked really bad. And he x rayed it and he's like, I don't know what to say. I totally thought this thing was broken. It's not. I feel I had jumped timelines because I believed it and practiced it so strongly that I shifted my reality. And yet,
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. And I've shared in my previous books, like Quantum Jumps, I talked about a friend who she had a similar break with her leg. She was jumping from rock to rock after imbibing some alcoholic beverages. Do not try
oh,
this. Like, do not do this. Anyway, and she was about to start a new job, and then her leg was broken. But she was talking to me on the phone, and I was walking her through. So it had happened like that weekend, and now it's a couple days later. And I'm just talking about, and she had seen me when we'd had lunch, like maybe 6 months earlier. I'd put my hand over an injury, a cut. She saw the cut. I took my hand
yeah,
away. The cut was gone, and she said, "Is it possible, Cynthia, that you something like that could happen for my job? Because I just starting this new
yeah.
job. I don't have health insurance. It's like, and this whole thing just happened." I said, "Sure, it's possible. Let's do it. If you're open to it." And because I think it helps when you know this kind of thing can happen. She'd seen it with a cut, so then she felt like, okay, let's do it. And she felt sort of her leg itching, sort of like feeling like it was. She said, "I can feel something happening inside the leg." And I said, "That's really good. That's healing." So it's like it can be like you suggested, like it never happened. It doesn't need to be broken. So, but she saw the cut just go away, and so she knew, like, okay, this can happen. And sure enough, then she went back in for X-ray follow-up, and there was no more broken
Yeah.
leg. Then it became a different issue, like, why are you getting medical care when you don't have a problem? But
So,
it was better.
what did you do to your arm? I mean, how did you shift that reality?
Well, yeah, previous to that, I'd slammed my fingers indoors, and I'd written about that in my book, Reality Shifts. So it's the same kind of thing. It's just bringing love and energy and just feeling like this. It's kind of like what you said, like this never happened. But basically, it's just picturing like I need this myself to be well. I was hoping she hadn't noticed when we were having lunch, because actually, the less people are involved in the inner circle, the better. Because if it's just you, that's like perfect. Or if it's you and someone else that also believes and is intending that this can happen, very good. You want to be choosy and discerning about your inner circle there.
Oh,
So she actually observed it, but it came in handy for her later. So that was good. And she didn't deflect it or cause trouble with the whole thing.
okay, bring it back then, not to the election, but about humanity. It can be America, but it can also be humanity. Is it?
Yes.
Does it mean it is harder for us to shift? Harder is such a, it's a contrived word. It's not real, but I'm going to use that word anyway because I don't have a proper word to describe it. It is more challenging for us to shift timelines as a species or as a beingness if more people believe in one thing than another than it is if it's like you're saying that smaller inner circle. That it takes, I don't know if percentage is the right terms, but more people getting on that same frequency or same wavelength of a new belief in order for it to take place.
Okay, well, this is going to get kind of weird pretty fast, but subjective
Please get
reality.
weird.
Okay, subjective reality is the key here to that question, which means that there can be some people experiencing one timeline or reality and others
Oh no.
experiencing something different. Oh, yes. Just like you and your wife. Like, I swear you said this, and no, I said that. I did not say that. You've seen it happen. It can happen with groups of us. It is happening with groups of us. So
Okay,
we're in
so
these different, very different Wigner bubbles, and that's what's on the cover of my new book. It's if you're wondering what am I holding in my hand,
yes.
these two bubbles, these Wigner bubbles. It's the reality that these can be side by side. We can jump between them, and we can also honor that they coexist. So that's what's trippy about your question, because some people might literally be in a separate reality. And that's could be what's happening in this wild, wacky, wonderful, squidgy time.
Yeah.
There can be people actually going to two different realities.
So this gets me to Gwyneth Paltrow, Sliding Doors, and it also gets to me to the Oscar-winning movie from 2 years ago. Um, with Michelle Kwan in it. I can't believe I'm
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
yes, because where it leads me is, can we be experiencing multiple realities simultaneously? And then can we actually learn to control how to jump, which is what she did in her movie, from one reality to another?
Yes, we can. And that's exactly what I'm that's my goal with my books and my work, is to help people feel comfortable first in this ever shifting, ever changing reality that can be
Yeah.
a little bit disconcerting when you start noticing it, because we've been trained in our Western world to believe that reality is fixed, it's stable. The moving
Yeah.
finger writes, and having writ moves on, nor all your piety nor wit can change a single line of it.
Yeah.
That's what we believe, but that's not true. That's not reality. That's not natural. And that's shocking when we start noticing, like, wait a minute, that everything, everywhere, all at once movie is real. Yes. So we really can recognize in the midst of like all the chaos and all the changing realities, you can change the timeline you're on. You can notice, like, this is not right. Like when I felt that way about Jane Goodall, and I didn't think about her for years, but then suddenly she's alive again. That was
Yeah.
wonderful. It didn't work for John Lennon because I remember feeling like that's not right. And then he hasn't come back. He hasn't come back yet, but you never know. And so it could happen. And then like, oh, so who knows? But these timelines, they really do. They're quite fluid, and that's good to know when you're in the face of a situation like you found
Mhm.
yourself with that slippery that bike fall, the accident, and then noticing like this looks terrible. They're saying it's broken, but no, it's I love my leg. I can picture that that never
Yeah.
happened. I
Yeah.
know that I'm in another reality. You can choose that. We can all do that.
Wow.
That's why we're getting this toolkit right now. I'm
So
sure of it because there are just so many otherwise insoluble seeming huge problems facing us right now. So we're getting a big toolkit.
we've had many guests on the show that talk about a bifurcation of we'll go America centric for a moment, that there's going to be certain states or certain people that are going to become more enlightened, sounds like better than the other, but certain people that are going to go down one path, certain people that are going to go down another path. And then we have other guests saying, no, we're going to all come together as one. And then we have other people saying, "Oh my gosh, if some people aren't going to make it and we're going to make it, are they going to be destroyed? And what's going to happen?" This is all going on together, and we're all experiencing multiple timelines. And are some people going to be, I guess, where am I going with this question? Are some people going to be stuck? And there's no such thing as stuck. So this, I'm using a loaded dice, stuck in one timeline that's different or maybe more challenging than some other of us that are going to be in another timeline.
Well, anything's possible. But I'm with you about the stuck thing. In a squidgy reality, then who's stuck really? Like it's squidgy. Like you don't have to be stuck. You can just jump timelines. But for a lot of people, they don't know how to jump timelines. And you may wonder, what's the big sticking factor? How are they stuck? It all has usually it has to do with letting go and then moving into alignment. And I'm sure most of your guests have covered all the basics here.
Yeah,
But there can be a learning curve, and some people are still they're just slow. They're having it takes a little longer, so they may need a little extra time. And I believe in how good can it get for everyone. So if they need extra time, then they'll be in the perfect reality to get the extra time. So I don't think of it as hellish or a nightmare. It doesn't need we don't need to foresee that at all. I'd
thank you.
prefer that we don't.
It's
Yes.
all here to serve us. All of it, all of it, all of it.
Yes.
What are then jump points?
Okay, jump points are interesting because that would be typically, there are a number of reasons that you might notice a jump point. Usually it's where timelines are converging. So there's a whole lot. You just feel like, wow, there's a lot of energy here. You'll feel the energy. You
To
might
me,
feel some confusion.
the assassination
Yeah.
attempt a couple weeks ago to me seems like a timeline, a jump point. Forgive me. This goes. There's a question from the audience that goes exactly with what you're saying. A lot of people have been talking about, and I certainly have been talking about feeling dizzy at times. Does that go
Yes.
along with this?
Yes, there are some physiological symptoms that people do notice. I cover it a little bit in my book. Dr. Taran Lupo was noticing that. He ran some surveys, like, what are people noticing? Yes, dizziness, definitely one of the things that he was picking up on, and people were reporting. And so it's like when you're at the jump point and you're getting all that, man, I'm getting rush of energy just talking about it. It just feels like you're right. You know, when the energy you feel when you're at a waterfall, like Niagara Falls or something like that, and it's just so much energy. So when you're at a jump point, you'll feel like there's so much energy, and you'll feel it could be dizzy. This is why all of our practice comes in handy, right? To
Yeah.
grounding, meditating, breathing, focusing, staying calm, staying neutral, being in acceptance, all the basics. And you might think space, those are basics, Cynthia. Yes, it's always about the basics. And when you're at the jump point, it's basics. So all that practice that comes into play. And then it'll just be very natural. You may wonder, well, which reality will I be in the right reality? Absolutely, because it'll be guided by what you're feeling, what you need, and how all of the energy centers in yourself line up. I hear a kitty cat.
Yeah, you hear a kitty cat who's, I think, locked in the studio, who's going, I need out. She's saying, I need out to get food. So I'm going to, after I ask the next question, I'm going to go rescue Kitty. I hear people, and I want to get to some more of people's questions here, but I hear people saying, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but they're saying, help, I'm on the wrong timeline. What do I do about it?
Yes, that's such a good question. Sounds like the kitty's saying that too. Okay. Yeah. Well, when that happens, and it's such a normal thing to feel that way, to feel that you're on the wrong timeline. I've also heard lots of people say that, and it can feel that way. I
Yeah.
felt that way myself. I felt like I just need this one thing to change outside of me.
Yep.
What I know when it happens to me is, and if I listen deeper and go into the stillness and finally get around to, okay, let me hear my guides. When I finally do that process, then I hear, oh, I do need to become more patient. I thought I was patient, clearly not enough. So going within and recognizing that what we're going to see on the outside is always going to be a mirror of what we're going through inside. And I know where it's going to go next, but they're pushing too many buttons at once. It's too awful. No one should have to deal with this. I can't, I don't know what to say about all that. I'm telling you things that I've gone through. I have felt like that myself. So
Yep.
I'm not just talking nonsense. Um, what I've realized is, well, I guess the universe thinks I'm that strong. So I guess I need all of my buttons to be pushed at once. Yes. Like, okay, so wow, that's amazing. I didn't know I was that strong. Like, but that's kind of what you've been through it too, Michael. I know you have. So then when these things happen, I recommend keep asking how good can it get? Because believe you might think I don't always do that. Oh, yes, I do. Even in long COVID, I've done that at all my lowest points. Yes, yes, it's also a basic practice. So all I can say is it will get better. It's a process. It's going to be starting on the inside before you see it on the outside. You're not in the wrong timeline. I felt that way when I got to the planet Earth. I thought the whole planet was wrong, totally the wrong planet. It's like if it was an elevator, I'd be right back in there pushing a different button. Like wrong planet. It was
I
like
was
a mistake.
from what I've told, and I've replayed that the birthing story of Michael, is the doctor had to pull me out. This is what, many a year ago, with tongs, and I had a cone head. They called me, I think, a cephalopod or something for a day because I'm pulling out, because I'm going, no, get me home. I don't want to go into that reality, even though I had chosen it.
Oh my gosh. I'm right there with you. I think, yeah, I actually had an intervention. I think I told you that in a previous interview when I was 5, because I
Yeah.
really felt like it was such a wrong planet. But I was I knew at age 5, it's like I know how to get back home to being dead again. Like, yeah. So that's when I got the angelic intervention. Time stopped, and then they had a nice little chat with me and helped me understand that I'm choosing to stay here. They didn't force me at all.
Yeah.
They just kept asking questions and showing me things, and then I came to my senses, like, oh, okay. So I realized it's my life is not my own. I am in service, and that's part of the joy of living, actually, to realize that it's part of a greater whole. It's gets back to that hierarchy. The day of hierarchies is almost over. I know we look for our president to be our leader and our government to show the way. But that's not where the future is going to be taking us. We'll be seeing much more of that Sangha, much more of the spiritual community, people who look within and then transform the world without. And then we are in Shambhala. We're in the golden age as
Yeah.
we do this. And that's what toward the end of my new book, I get into that part of it, because it is a wisdom effect. And we are capable of stepping into this.
Yeah. Are we capable of? Hannah Bear has come in clear sight. And she still holds on to a lot of that. And my guess is that the new gen will hold on to it a lot more. Are we capable of, at some point, choosing a reality where, I can't believe I'm going to put it this way, where we etch a sketch all of the old paradigm, an old magnetic etch a sketch, we shake it
Yeah.
up and down and we just erase it and say, done, let's create a new one.
I think it's going to tip. I think there's going to be a tipping point, and we'll just feel
Mhm.
like, what happened? But I think some of us, we're the way showers, and we're
Yeah.
holding that vision. Like we can, I can picture the golden ages here, Shambhala is here. To me, it's not a big stretch. I've been ready for it my whole life, so it's
Yeah.
like I'm programming that parking spot. Like, oh yeah, this is it. And I don't need a solar micronova. I don't need oceans crashing all over the continents. I don't need all that nonsense. Like we can do this so smooth, like we've never done it before. And even if like, but the aliens are returning and they're fighting, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll clearly explain to them that we have matured now and we're greeting them as partners
Yeah.
in this reality. Things are changing, things are
Yeah.
different.
I
So
would be
yeah,
okay
it is,
though
it's like
if
an etch a sketch. I
I'd
like
be
it.
okay if we have the Beetlejuice supernova and have this giant lotus in the sky that's brighter than the moon. I think that would be kind of cool. I guess unforeseen consequences, but it does sound kind of cool to me.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we could stand up to it. Maybe because it seems like humans are changing. I don't know about yourself, but I splashed boiling water on myself a month or two ago, and it didn't burn my skin. And I've noticed I've been in the sun, and I'm not getting sunburned. There's something changing, and I'm seeing
Mhm.
sparkles. It's like a lot of things seem like maybe we're moving into our light bodies. Maybe it's not just the heart moving to the center of the chest, but if we're expecting and looking for upgrades in our own human being, maybe we're evolving to have a light body, to maybe not need to eat plants or animals in the future. Maybe we're seeing that in our
Yeah,
own lifetime. These are the kind of
very
things
cool.
that are quite possible. Yeah.
So tell me, let's get into the strange things here. What is
Okay.
non-linear ortho orthogonal? I said it better before the show. Orthogonal time.
Okay. Yeah, that's an idea. I'm going to give a shout out to Philip K. Dick again. He's one of the people, of course, who experienced this Mandela effect, and he was hypothesizing that maybe because he did have an experience with his future self. He met his future self.
Yeah.
I've met my future self, and it's not we're not the only ones that have done that. It doesn't happen that often, but people do meet literally their future self. And so if you have an experience like that, then you're wondering, how is that even possible? So in other words, linear time that we think goes like that moving finger that writes and having writ and so forth. In other words, always moving from the past
Mhm.
to through the present to the future. And we tend to think that everything stays on that timeline,
Yeah.
that's the events of the past are staying put. What if they're not? What if there is this idea of orthogonal time, that you can kind of get an influence
Yeah.
outside of this linear construct? And so it's just a way to think in a higher level of dimensions, basically. And I think we have been extremely limited. We were talking about this a little before the show
Yeah.
too, about the dimensionality concept is kind of outmoded. The mathematics we're using is
Yeah.
not up to snuff. It's not quite good enough. So we're looking at new mathematics and new ways of approaching this.
If it's a holographic universe, obviously it is, but let's, at least at this level of understanding, we're finally coming to the
Mhm.
understanding of a holographic universe. Does this mean that sort of like my higher self, there's a me outside of this timeline that is actually having an influence on the me? I'm picturing like what appears to be a triangle, but is actually a pyramid. And so there's the me at the points in this triangle, but I don't realize that there's another axis and there's another me outside of it that's actually having pushing pressure or information into the me in this timeline and affecting this timeline.
Okay. Yeah. I lost the question in there, but I'm so dazzled by the different timelines.
Is
Where's the
there
question?
a me that's outside of this timeline or outside of this reality that is having an effect on the me in this timeline or reality?
To the degree that you can observe your other selves, then yes, you're absolutely able to do that. That's the key, is the observational factor. So
Yeah.
there's a level of conscious agency that I didn't really get I had people reviewing the book and giving comments and feedback, and one of them was really asking about what about this? Because I just mentioned levels of conscious agency, referred to Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, the philosopher
Mm.
and genius mathematician, one of the inventors of calculus. So I'm doing that, but there needs to be like a whole book on that whole subject of levels of conscious agency because it starts with Leibniz. I'm going to do that shout out to him from a few hundred years ago. He talked about monadology. He talked about a first order perception and then a higher level perception. And we do that when we meditate. When we meditate and recognize that you can be aware of other timeline selves. You know if you'd made a different choice, you might still be somewhere else. You might be in Hawaii. You might not be married. You might not have a child. It's like a whole other life you're looking at. Or you might just be looking at last week, and all those things are the same, but something else is different.
Yeah.
So the part of you that's capable of jumping back, jumping up to a higher level of conscious agency, so you can see like the tree with all of the branches of realities there. That the more you train yourself to identify with the one who's able to do the jumping, uh, the more beautiful the experiences of these Mandela effect timeline jumps will be for you.
Thank you. Let's talk real briefly again about we'll talk about superposition, we'll talk about entanglement, and we'll talk about parallel universes or parallel versions of ourselves. And we were talking earlier about quantum entanglement and one thing being up, one thing being down, and flipping it, and they're going to exactly mirror each other no matter where they are in time and space in the universe. Are we quantum entangled with other versions of ourselves or other parallel universes where something that we do affects our us there, or something that they, and I'm just getting very confusing, me on the other parallel universe affects our life here in this timeline on Earth?
Wow. It's hard to know that for sure. It seems I actually do work with my other timeline selves, mostly in
Tell me
this
more
in the
about that.
process. Yeah. Well, I want to make sure that I'm not taken over by dark forces. So I want to make sure that I'm consistently, no matter which reality I'm in, I'm basically doing that. How good can it get? Philosophy, which you might think is kind of limiting. Yeah. So I'm
Oh,
bonsaiing the tree. Oh, yeah.
my statement for everybody who's in our school of mystics, or anybody who's been here for the longest time, we are so on the same wavelength, because I go, how does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? That's what I say. It's
Yes.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. So that's really fundamentally the key is just knowing that it needs to be the best and for me, that's the best for all concerned. So it's a
Yes.
very wide, sweeping, embracing sense of optimalism for everybody, which can seem a little bit overwhelming. But when I know for sure, and I've had this experience of waking up day after day after day and feeling like I'm cycling through versions of myself, feeling like, because it felt like my whole world is different, like, whoa, this reality is different. And then I know, like, oh, this is another version of me. So I've got the higher level feeling of I'm getting a chance to try different versions of me through my life right now and get that input. I have done that, but as far as going back to your question,
Mhm.
I don't really know the answer to that. I would tend to suspect that there's always an impact, even though we think, oh, these realities are so different. I know that it comes back together again, and it's going to be at that level where you're aware that you are all of those selves. And at that level, then you're integrating that, and then you're recognizing that did affect everything. I could feel like I don't want to be a bad person. I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I don't want to
Yeah.
cause injury unnecessarily to anybody. And because you'll learn faster as you recognize these things. I can tell you want to say
Yeah.
something.
Well, I'm curious, and somebody just brought up a brilliant question. I'll get to that in a minute. But do you wake up in the morning and get in touch with other versions? I don't know another way to put it. Other parallel versions of yourself, and say, this is the one that I want to choose for today.
We have done that. Yes, I've sometimes I'll just sort of flip through. It's like a flip book, like which ones are available, and then I'll sort of feel like, oh, this is definitely the how good can it get one. And it's kind of like you choose what to wear when you get dressed. It's like
Okay.
choosing the self for the day. Yeah.
I like that. Would you say, so somebody was just asking that our self that we're experiencing in our dreams is a parallel reality of ourself here, is another version of ourselves, or another timeline even?
Yeah, it can be. That's a great way to explore these other timelines and these other versions of self. There's so much that opens up in our dreamscape, and it can be a way to explore that higher level of conscious agency I'm talking about, where you can to meet interdimensional beings. You might wonder, what do I mean by that? Well, it's like angels, but it could also be interdimensional beings here on the planet, other life forms. You might call them devic spirits, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. Things that seem outrageous. Unicorns, dragons can be real, things that are fanciful. So within the dream world, to me, it seems like the real reality. It feels like,
yeah,
oh, this is where it's happening. This is the real thing. And so for me, bringing that dream level of reality into this physical world, because the dream world is really, it's like the quantum field. It's where
mhm,
everything's in the realm of possibilities. And to recognize that, oh, we're getting to play with things there and getting to explore the other realities. When we bring that daydreaming capability of that, it feels like the theta, different brainwave states that we go
yeah.
through when we're dreaming, we can bring it into our waking life and move in and out of that, then it's possible that we can start um, bringing blessings for ourselves and others and noticing miraculous shifts in
Yeah.
situations that we might have thought were completely stuck. So
Cool.
that's a way to bring that magic into real life.
You just gave me one heck of a mind altering concept here, which is going back to unicorns and going back to all sorts of animals that we've seen on so many different cultures and over thousands of years, cave dwelling drawings and stuff of half man half horse. I wonder if these are the ultimate Mandela effects, that on one reality and one timeline they did all exist. I mean, there are literally cave drawings of all sorts of different things that are in societies all across the globe from thousands of years ago, and yet supposedly they never existed.
It's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. And things could change too. That's the other trippy part. Like, I think it's interesting. I'll often look at historical and archaeological facts to see how are these historical and archaeological facts changing, which is because I know they do. And extinct animals can come back, like the coelacanth fish that looks like a dinosaur fish. It's
Yeah,
huge, and that's totally back. Giant Galapagos tortoises are back. Things that have gone extinct that are, to me, it gets me when they're so big. Like, how did we not notice a fish that big or a tortoise that huge? Where was that hiding? And so when you're getting to the cave paintings and sketches and these strange things, maybe they did exist. I don't know. The part of me that's a scientist would be wondering, like, well, have we found anything to match that in the skeletal remains and,
yeah,
anything? I haven't seen anything like that yet, but it may be coming. So
yeah.
that would be, I have not yet seen it, but then at some strange point, it'll be like, we've had these skeletons for centuries. Like, what? Never, never heard of it. It would be like the dodo bird being back again.
Oh, I was talking about the dodo bird with Jessica earlier today. Yes. See, when I hear
Nice.
Dodo Bird does not regularly come up in conversation in my house. Dodo Bird has not come up in conversation on the show. So when I say Dodo Bird to Jessica earlier today, it was specifically I found this feather on the trail, and I said, this is probably an eagle feather. And she goes, well, what if it's not an eagle feather? And I joked and I said, well, if it's not an eagle feather, um, maybe it's a pheasant. I said, maybe it's just a pigeon. I said, maybe it's even a dodo bird. And then you
Yes,
go to that. That to me is a bookmark from talk about how does it get any better than this? This is a bookmark from the universe of pay
it
attention.
is.
Pay attention
Yes.
right here, right now.
Yes. And what you're saying about the dodo is what I'm feeling too. It's like we can bring it back. We without the DNA, with all the fancy tricks and the machinations that I know there are geneticists working on that, perhaps. But the dodo can just suddenly come back. It seems like when we've been tracking it in our International Mandela Effect Conference live streams, we've been noticing that some of these extinct animals are getting closer. They're getting closer. It's like now they've only been extinct a shorter time. They're moving in. And it's based on what we remember. It's like, wait a minute, is that one? It's like it's almost here. The dodo's coming. We're getting
How,
more and more.
how do you track that in a conference? And do you take notes and then the notes are changed and we go, how did they even change? Is it that it's the collective remembrance of the last conference?
It's a collective remembrance. Yeah, we have the physical conferences. We'll have one in
Yeah.
November. We had one last September. But then most every month we have a live stream, and that's where we get together. Usually four of us. Chris Sinatra from the Quantum Businessman channel, Jerry the Dark Wolf Hicks, and Shane Robinson of Unbiased and on the Fence. So the four of us, we get together and we do compare notes, and we know that our memories matter. Like this yesterday, we were doing the July show at the end of the month, and I was noticing that we'd covered something that I remembered we'd covered before: rainbows showing up in the swamp, like rainbow swamps. I said, "Wait a minute, we've done this before." I remember it so clearly. But I was the only one that really felt that certain. And Chris quickly checked his notes, like, nope, we've never covered it before. And after the show, I confirmed we've never covered it before. And Shane said, that's weird because I feel like once you said that, then I felt like maybe we have, but then I couldn't quite remember it. But to me, it was quite clear, like we definitely covered it before, even though we didn't. And so that's a good example. Well, we trust it's like when you and Jessica are talking about, you said that, no, you didn't. We're having that kind of a conversation, and we
Yeah.
do trust our own memories because what happens is you go to your notes, there might not be anything there. And when we're watching the dodo bird getting closer, we might see all of our past shows on the dodo bird all change. Now they all show like it really is that close, but we'll remember it was not that close before.
Yeah.
But you know,
You're bringing up an awesome point. Sorry, you just keep popping ideas in my head. One of the things I've been saying about myself lately is, and I'm going to bring it to a present day example, is I've been saying I'm confusing timelines. I will, what would be a good example of it? I will almost trip on something. I'm not sure how this example is going to work out. I'm going to almost trip on something and I'm going to go, oh, really watch it because you want to be careful you don't trip on that. And you watch it and you watch it and watch it. And then suddenly there's this big trip or something that takes place. And you go, what if I was trying to avoid tripping on this thing because I knew that I had already tripped over this thing, but it was in the future. And I'm starting to confuse what's future and what it's a precognition issue going on that I think is taking place not just with me, but with so many of us right now.
absolutely. Oh, you hit the nail on the head. That really is something happening big time right now. And I think for those of us who meditate like you do, and the more tuned in you are, the more aware you are, the more you'll
Yeah.
notice, like, did I do this already? Or you'll notice that timeline confusion, like what I had yesterday with the rainbow swamps. Like, we've done this. Like, nope, it's the first time. Like, not for me. And
There's
so it's very confusing, but it's not a bad thing. It can be enjoyable.
no, I think we can get to work and play with it. So there's a house I'm looking at that we may get, we may not get. I feel like we're going to get it, but I have no idea, and I have no idea how it'll come together. But I walked into the house and I looked at this just gorgeous backdrop, and I said, "This is almost identical to a green screen backdrop that I was using for years. How is this even possible?"
I
Yeah.
think you answered your own question. It's like that. It's like the timeline. Just because you're so quantumly attached to it, it doesn't matter about the future. Now, there's your orthogonal time. It doesn't matter that it happened in the future. And when Philip K. Dick was talking about that, he of course was referencing things like the Roman Empire was here. It was here in the United States in his time when Richard Nixon was president. He felt like the
Mhm.
Roman Empire is here now. He was feeling, and also World War II. He could feel all the timelines converging with the same kind of socio-political themes happening. Um, but in your case, it's very good. It's not the dark themes of, the Roman Empire marching with their weapons. You're just getting this beautiful green screen backdrop and feeling so connected to it in that quantum entangled way that
Yeah.
can be the guide to guide us forward and so that you know something's right for you. You feel like, I know this already. This is right. But it can also blow your mind at the same time.
Is it in many ways a message coming from you for the universe? Is it a grounding message? Is it? I mean, that's happened before when we lived in Colorado. I had for years before we moved to Colorado, I had as another backdrop this beautiful random mountain trail behind me as one of the green backdrops. We moved to Colorado, and a few weeks later found ourselves on that trail. And I'm going, what?
Yeah, exactly. So it can be a guide for sure. And sometimes even if when it just seems weird, it's because Philip K. Dick's not the only historical figure who's had these experiences. In my book, I've also mentioned Carl Jung had this trippy experience when he went to Ravenna, Italy, and he was visiting some very spiritual holy places, and he saw huge mosaics on the walls in an octagonal room with soft blue lighting and
Yeah.
these 6 by 8 foot giant mosaics were there, and he was talking with them. There were four of them, and they were all depicting water scenes about baptisms and so forth. And he was telling his friend Tony Wolfe about it, and in great detail. They spent quite a bit of time talking about it. And then when they came home, they regretted they hadn't picked up a postcard of this scene. There must be one. So they were asking a friend, could you pick up a postcard when you're there? Turns out that none of those mosaics exist. And so what he and Tony had seen was obviously, it made him wonder, what was that?
Yeah.
How could I have spent so much time looking at something that didn't exist?
Well,
And then
let's
Mark
take.
Twain, of course, had another weird experience too. So I
What
think the
was Mark
Mandela
Twain's?
effect, he's the one where in the 1890s, somebody went to go make sure he was still alive because there was a rumor circulating that he had passed on, he'd died.
Well, that was greatly exaggerated.
Yes. And there's the famous quote, right? And so we laugh about it, we joke about it, like the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. But what precipitated the rumors of his death? And now we would say, oh, that's another Mandela effect. We would say, because where did those rumors come from?
Well, it,
Mark Twain himself was attributing it to a cousin who had been in poor health. He's like, oh, you must have. Why would anyone confuse him with his cousin,
yeah.
though? To me, it's like, what? That doesn't make sense.
And I think in your book, correct me if I'm wrong, it no longer says that rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Just rumors of my
Right.
death were
Yeah, where
exaggerated,
does
or
Yeah, I know it's changed, right? It's like
which
even
totally
that's another,
deflates the whole thing.
I know, exactly. Yeah, I've got it right here. It's like, okay, let's see. The report of my illness grew out of his illness, the cousin. The report of my death was an exaggeration.
That
Yeah, I
totally
remember greatly.
deflates it.
I know. So you could say, well, we conflated it, we exaggerated ourselves, maybe. And it was a long time ago, since the 1890s. So
What does our energy or energetic state have to do with which timeline we find ourselves on?
has a lot to do with it, actually. So, and sometimes that can be going back to that earlier question. I'm on the wrong timeline. So it's like you need to raise your energy. I can't because I'm on the wrong timeline. Yeah. So this is the key thing right there. You hit the jugular, the heart and soul of it. So, it really is all about the energetic frequency and pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps and helping each other out and staying positive, adopting, if you want to, an attitude of radical optimism, which I subscribe to myself, obviously, with how good can it get? And I'm sure
Yeah.
you're another adherent of the same beautiful philosophy. So hanging out with groups of people
Yeah.
like us can be just a boost for everybody. So they can start feeling like, well, I don't know how they stay so chipper and but
Well,
it's just this, it's a daily, it's like exercise, right? It's like then I might start out feeling like feeling some weight of the world on me, but you can just do your breathing, do your meditation, do your grounding, do your basic stuff. Yes.
you could
Look at your
take
signs.
you could take your feather pen and you could, when
I
you
love the
get up,
dodo.
yes, you could. Well, you could certainly do a write in for President Noah, write in that the dodo is now alive. But you could get up in the morning, and I believe you
Mhm.
could write yourself into a new timeline. And it may take a few days. It may take longer than that. But if you shift your energy by imagining, no
Yes.
matter how trapped, how stuck, how anything, you
Yes.
imagine and write that new reality. You can create it just from your energetic state alone.
Yeah, there's a proven way to do this just by keeping it. I love that. And you can keep a gratitude journal, just noticing three things that you are so grateful for in the last 24 hours that you had something to do with. And this practice, this gratitude practice, has been recognized as being more effective than medication for people who have been seriously depressed for some time. So this is, I include that one in my book, Quantum
Yeah.
Jumps, because it's such a powerful way. Everybody can do it. You can think of what are three things you're grateful for that you had something to do with. And it may be a struggle at first,
Yeah.
but because that starts pulling you up by the bootstraps, it starts giving you that energy. Gratitude is a big one because then you can start feeling like, now I can envision what to write with the other pen. Because
Yeah.
sometimes people can be so down so far, they can't even, all they can picture is more of the same. It's like, I can't find my way out of this hole. It's pretty deep. I'm down in the bottom of a pit. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to write. But when you start recognizing, like, well, there's sun today and it didn't rain on me. Yeah, there's something.
What about now? I've got Aaron Wexler who's asking multiple questions on jumping to future timelines. Can we use gratitude as a tool? And this gets into not a fake it till we make it game, but this gets into a drawing us toward the door that's already open, or the door is drawing us toward it. However we want to look at that. Can we write down gratitude for the things that we want to happen as if they have already happened, change our energetic state there, see us in that new timeline, and actually bring about the thing that we're giving thanks for?
Absolutely. That's my favorite kind of reality shifting journal is to combine these gratitude statements with visions that kind of come through sometimes. It's like the backgrounds that you described, and then whoa, I'm here. So,
Yeah.
so it's like the visions and the dreams and the daydreams and the gratitude and then also the intentions and the affirmations and putting all of that into one beautiful
Yeah.
journal. So anytime you can flip it open randomly and it's just all good. It's like it's either something you're grateful for or something you're dreaming of, something you're intending, or a vision that just came through. And oh my gosh, yes. And then the whole book is just bursting with energy and it naturally lifts you up just to open it. So absolutely.
It's funny because this goes along with another synchronicity. I was talking about how to describe my new book that I'm writing right now. I was talking about how to describe it to Mark, who you'll be speaking with later tonight. And I
Mhm.
said, imagine a book that's so filled with energy that when you try to put it down on the table, it just levitates. And no matter how much you push it down, it just keeps coming back up. And when you open it up, it just keeps bringing your energy higher and higher and higher to where no matter if you close the book right now, you will never be able to get back to the energetic state you started. That's what you're talking about, not just with reading my book or your book. You're talking about we can create that our own version of that ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes, that's it. And I recommend people do that because it's pretty simple and you can just start fresh, get a fresh journal book and dive in.
Beautiful. So, let's see. Another question that came in is, what are other physiological effects we should expect when jumping timelines?
Well, I like to ask how good can it get. So I personally don't end up with so many of people get all sorts of things. They get ringing in the ears, sort of dizziness. I don't feel like I feel like I'm jumping timelines so often. I don't want to be bogged down with a lot of that. So you can recognize you're actually working this out with levels of your own conscious agency. You can set the settings for yourself, just like you'd set your screensaver
Yeah.
or the brightness on your computer. You can sort of decide, like, how much of this do I want? Do I feel like I need a lot of feedback? What kind of feedback do I like? So it can be all sorts of things.
A lot of people experience tinnitus, ringing in the ears lately, and it seems
Yes.
like I have no statistics on it, but it seems like more and more, particularly as people are waking up or playing with energy. What do you feel is going on with that, and is that some sort of a feedback loop or feedback mechanism?
It can also be a feedback mechanism, yes. And so it depends on the kind of tinnitus or ringing in the ears. So we're not, for me, when I get that, it can be variable and it can be in one ear, the other ear. And sometimes it's a message. It's just like giving, because I like that. I like to know, I like things to be very specific. So if I get like a ringing in the left ear, it means because I'm right-handed, it would indicate, let's listen more closely to whatever reality is showing me right now. And if it's in the right ear, it's like, okay, I need to share what I'm hearing. I need to, in other words, be conscious and sentient and mindful about this experience.
Yeah.
What am I hearing? And then to share that. Um, so it can be quite a good feedback tool. And I personally like to play with the settings and just set it to where I like it. And I think people, the more you get into this, the more you can have fun with that.
So we've got you writing in your journal. We have you flipping through the pages of all of your future selves and choosing the one today. And then we have you turning the dial. Is it turning the dial on your sensitivities?
Yeah, I can turn them up or turn them down. I tend to be pretty high sense perceiving, so very often I like if I'm supposed to be in regular daily contact with people, then I want it turned down. If I'm driving a car, want it turned down. Because if I'm driving a car and like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Don't want that stuff going on, so turn it way down. Like, okay, I need to drive safely now.
Yes.
Don't want that energetic stuff happening.
What are some of the other things that you're doing or tweaking for your reality or for your even staying grounded in present time and space, even as you're meddling with, I like this term, meddling with your future self or your future timeline?
Um, Well, I do take lots of checkpoints. So that would be like a quiet point, just going into stillness. I like to do that because then it enables me the capability to feel all the background energy that's going on. I'm often tuned into things happening on a global level. So if there's, it gives me that opportunity to feel like what's happening. And if there's anything that needs to be tended to, then I can tune into that. So I'm not checking the internet. I'm checking the internet. It's like what's going on, what's the general feeling. And those checkpoints I think are the key to everything for me. So and the stillness, just slowing time, slowing thoughts to a stop, because then it's going outside of that linear time and moving into that quantum orthogonal time, which is like the dream space where all of reality is created. So I do love to hang out there. I love
Have,
it when I wake up in the morning. I love it when I fall asleep, and I like a
yeah.
few, at least a few checkpoints in the day like that.
So I can't believe I'm going to go here. I didn't go anywhere with the Matrix today, which I was surprised about. However, the latest Matrix movie, love it or not love it, um, the character who's the new version of the architect, I believe, says, "I can sum it up in one word," and it turns out to be two words. And it drives me nuts that he says, "I can sum it up in one word." He says, "Bullet time." And I don't know if you've seen the latest Matrix. Bullet time is this extreme slowing down. Have you ever
Yes.
played with in your mind, literally seeing yourself or your mind or everything slow down to get you into that liminal space or that space in between everything?
Yeah, that is the meditation I'm doing. But I've also had the physical experience twice with time slowing to a stop. And it's quite extraordinary when that happens because it can actually happen. And you might think like, no, it doesn't. But I could hear the sounds slowing down both times, strangely. And I think this is no accident.
Yeah.
To me, it's like a feather. It's like a sign. Both times, one, I have two daughters, and in both experiences, they were headed for a very hard surface and they were falling. So of course a mother would want time to, if that was going to be the, if I get, you get two chances to stop time. Well, those are going to be the 2 days it happens, the two moments, like let's pick those two.
Well, it's
Because
fat.
then I was able to touch them and it was no problem.
I read in your book about one, like was falling 9 feet down and you caught her and then time
Yes.
went back to normal as if nothing had happened. It, as
Yes.
a bike racer, but more as my former hat as a real bike racer, whatever that means. Um, when there would be a massive crash or something taking place, time would be altered. Everything would happen in slow motion. And I've never thought about that till now, that I could actually step back and say, wow, these are opportunities to see time isn't real, because I was
Yes.
processing it quite differently in those moments. I think
Yes.
we've all had that experience.
We have. And I've been collecting reports from people who give me firsthand reports of their reality shifts. And quite often in those kind of accident situations, those are the times they will teleport occasionally. They'll just, time will slow down, but then it's like, I didn't land next to the car. It's like teleported to safety. I ended up 25 feet away, or they might feel they were carried there. By who? By what? It's like they were in a car 1 minute and then suddenly they're safely over here on the grass. Like, what?
My
And it doesn't make any sense,
two
but it
examples.
happens a
First,
lot. Yeah.
Jessica running down a volcano slope when she was in the Peace Corps in St. Vincent in the Grenadines, tripped and was falling on her face. And she said it must have been angels because all of a sudden I was upright.
Yes.
And then the
That's
second is
exactly it.
the reverse. My second near death experience, I slipped and fell and exploded a whole bunch of bones on impact. But I know where I was when I, in theory, slipped and fell. And then I've seen the photos of where I landed. They don't
That makes no,
match.
oh,
They don't even close to match. How did here get to there?
right. And these things don't really get explained because, and when they get reported to me, it's just mind blowing.
Mhm.
And I ask, well, were there witnesses? And usually not. But I think even I would love to know what a witness would see if there was a witness. Like, well, they were there 1 minute, and suddenly they're, I don't know what happened. They're over, they're safe over here.
I'm glad you
So
mentioned witnesses, and then we'll begin to wind this down. I want to know where people can find your work, can find your upcoming conference, all of your events. Um, what do you do? We'll go back to the Jessica and me situation, and you both know what you saw. This is why it actually gets really weird in court these days, because somebody can actually be testifying and they did see that, and somebody else can be actually testifying and they've seen something different. How do we reconcile this as individuals, as a collective, and as we're going through this massive shift together?
that's a good question. And I did raise this point when I was trying to get out of jury duty once. I was thinking, just explain this. So I did.
Oh, I'm sure
And
you did explained it and they let you out. I am sure of this.
they did not. No, I would think they would let me out, right? Because I'm going through the quantum logic business
Yep.
and this whole thing. And no, strangely, both attorneys look very pleased, very relaxed, like And I'm like, what the hell? The only one that looked concerned was the judge, who just he got really tall, he leaned forward, he said, "But you will adhere to the rules of this court." And my thought bubble was, did you not hear anything I just said? And I said, yes. And he just looks like, okay. And then I was on, and then I was selected foreman of the jury. I thought the other jurors would think she's nuts. No, they're like, she's asking questions that are the good questions. Like, so I think that's the key. Just ask questions.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I would look at things like, this doesn't make any sense. Does this make sense to anyone else?
Yeah.
Nope. Okay, let's ask a question. Ask a lot of questions, go deeper, see with the eyes of your heart, and don't judge anything based on what it looks like it is. What, like you said, and I love how this happened with you and Jessica. What if everybody is telling the truth? What does that mean? Then where are we? What if, yeah, it's a huge, huge, huge question, and
Oh,
these are the questions for the quantum age.
I love this question, and this is going to everybody. There are no sides on a round planet. Please forgive me for what I'm about to say. What if everybody who's red is right? What if everybody who's blue who's right? What if everybody who's what I call a zebra is right? What if we are all right, all in our own realities, and we have to find a way to come to a higher vibrational state where they can intermesh together, and then we can move through this nodal point together as one?
That would be really cool. And it expects a lot of us, which I
Yeah.
think we are ready for. I think we can. It requires humility, right?
Mhm.
And patience and listening and the ability to see that someone's viewpoint could be correct, even though you know that's not the truth for you. But it's like, but what if that is true for them? Are you willing to coexist on the planet with them? Yeah. I know that's what we're being asked right now as humanity. That's the real question. It's not about who we vote for or
Yeah.
whether blue is right or red is right or zebra or whatever. It's a much bigger question than that. And I know we're ready because we're here and we've got the tools and we're talking about it thanks to your show. So
Is,
thank you.
well, thank you. Is that why? Last thing, then, please send people everywhere, everywhere to you. Is this why? The last question I'll ask from audience is, why is this happening now rather than 100 years from now? Although Mark Twain was obviously in the past, and there in your book you list lots of historical figures, but why more now?
It's happening more now because we need it more now. And it needs to come into the public awareness at a level that it never has before. In the past, thousands of years ago, we would expect our shamans, our medicine men and women could answer these questions and play with reality for us, bring in the correct weather, bring in the the crops or the whatever it is that we needed, the hunt and so forth.
Yeah.
But now we're facing these gargantuan seeming problems, but they're not really. They're if we can wake up and be in a different part of the Milky Way than we were previously, which it looks like we have done that. Everything's different. So if we're doing that kind of thing collectively, then certainly we can keep asking how good can it get for all of us together without one of us trying with one group being better. We don't need that. We need to mature and be wise for a change. And then I know we can do it.
Woohoo.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, where can people go, Cynthia, to find out more, to find your work, and to find your upcoming events?
My website is realityshifters.com, and I've got a new Substack. I've moved my monthly newsletter to Substack, so people
Mhm.
can find me there.
Yeah.
So it's Reality Shifters there, and then I'm on all sorts of social media, YouTube, and so forth. My other website is for the International Mandela Effect Conference.
Yeah.
That one is imec.world, and that's where people can find out about everything that we're doing, usually once a month, but we'll have a big in-person gathering November 7th through the 10th, Nashville, Tennessee, this year, 2024. And we'll be talking about adventures in consciousness. I think I can now safely say who our keynote will be. That's Bill McKenna and Liz Larson talking about cognitive movement and about bringing that forth. We'll have many other timeline jumping experts. So one of them will be sort of showing a belly dancing way to bring in money, which is going to be cool. We got so much, we've got a PhD candidate who's going to be presenting his research. So we'll have scientists, we'll have experiencers, we'll have people talking about the Mandela effect from their own perspective, as well as where is it taking all of us together. So
Awesome.
it'll be fun, really fun.
And your book, where can people go
Yes,
to
my
get your
book.
book?
My book is called The Mandela Effect and Its Society, Awakening from Me to We. And I've got autographed copies through my website if people want to get that signed and mailed if they're in the United States. Otherwise, it's on Amazon.com. And that's probably the easiest place for people to find it. It's ebook, paperback, and hardcover formats. Well, I do an audiobook, but it's not out yet. So it's
Very
coming.
good. We
Yeah.
get to wrap things up. The last question that I have, and it's kind of a final words of wisdom, but what's exciting you most about our reality shifting at this time?
I've just never felt as optimistic and positive as I do right now because I feel maybe it's the children. I feel like what's giving me any sign of that? Because I know people say, what about this? What about that? But I really feel that this is the biggest time of seeing for the first time, like Shambhala, the golden age is here. And I'm getting goosebumps as I say that.
Yeah.
So it may sound crazy, not to you, but I know to a lot of people, it's going to be like, what is she doing? What drugs is she on? I'm not doing drugs. I really do
You're
feel
doing
this excitement.
timelines.
Yeah, I'm doing timelines. It's funny. So funny. I love it. Squidgy timeline factor. Yeah. Yeah, the timeline jumping is the key, but the children know about it. I know that they know. And the fact that they know means we've already done this. And that's actually the key as we're talking about today. When you know we've already done this, then it's just a matter of, just, oh, I can feel the whoosh of energy on that one. Yeah, we've done this. We know we've done this. So now we're just going to find our way through. And that's the fun of it, right? It's a little chaotic, it's a little strange, it's sometimes jarring and nerve-wracking, but it's never a dull moment.
We
So
are our own Merlin. It's kind of a fun time to tinker and play. This has been beautiful, Cynthia. This has been so, 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 so beautiful. Um, Before I let you go, just a huge note of gratitude and thanks. You've been doing this for a very long time, and people are starting to catch up with you. So if we go
yeah.
back 25 years ago, people would think you're really weird. They thought I was really weird too, and now we're weird, but people want to listen to us.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you've been saying how much better can it get? Because when I heard that, I was like, man, soul brother,
Yeah,
because I had just not heard that
yeah.
anywhere. And
The-
you know,
the-
but people are. we're taking these phrases. How good can it get? How much better can it get? There, I've seen it on the walls in a cafe in Australia.
Oh,
I've seen
cool.
it, people making. They're just bringing it everywhere, bringing it into the world, and that is so good.
Your expression brings together two of my expressions. So I have, how does it get any better than this? And the other is for, and I said it at the start when we did the prayer beforehand, for our highest good and the highest good of all, or something even better.
Oh my God.
That's where we're at tonight. So, for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, jump timelines, recognize that life is getting a little bit squidgier, and you can play, play, and play beginning today. And above all else, shine bright. Woohoo! And how
And
does it
we
get
love
any
you.
better than this?
Yeah, we love you. Love you so much.
Oh, love you too. Love you so much, Cynthia. Bye.
Every day there's a new horizon. Birds keep on singing, earth keeps on spinning. Time to toss any fears that rule you. Dance to vibrations, no limitations. Shine, hold the sunlight on your chest and fly. Look to the sky, let your spirit shine brightly, shine brightly. Oh.